Welcome to Shore Time. It is Shore Time with Vin and Dave. Vin Avenue, Dave Crossan with you here on 94.3 The Point and 105.7 The Hawk as we close out the month of June with a couple days remaining of Shore Time with Vin and Dave, getting you set for the 4th of July weekend coming up in just a few days. And we got a couple of great guests on to discuss, well, some things about the environment today, but also some summer safety, beach safety. Dave, the weather's here, the weather's right, water's getting warmer, and it feels like summer.
The fact that we are wrapping up June, really? I mean, think about this. You and I started this, I want to say February?
February 6th.
Right? And then here we are, wrapping up June. I mean, we are ready to go. Well, so far, it's been a great month, and there's been a lot of great things going on. Excellent interviews. I like what we're going to be focusing in on today. You know, safety's important. People are coming here. I mean, think about some of these towns, Vin, where all of a sudden it's, double, triple, quadruple the amount of people. You want to have fun, you want to have a good time, but you have to be careful. So here's a question for you, Vin.
All right.
First of all, we are very spoiled that we have all of this.
Lots
we
of
do
great
not
beaches.
have to drive an hour to get here. I mean, with fuel prices the way they are, parking your car, finding your way around, we have it. It's here. This is it. We have a great lifestyle. And for everybody listening in the area, they're like, you know what? This is the place to be.
I agree.
So here is my question. As I'm leading up to this big question.
Ba-dum-ba-dum-bum.
Okay. We have the beach.
Indeed.
Right?
Lots of good ones.
We have the bay. Are you a beach person? Are you the person that likes to go out, hang out on the beach, go into the water, enjoy a lot of time there? And there's a reason why I'm asking you that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, listen, in a perfect world, I'd be at the beach every day.
Okay.
Sitting in the sand, listening to some music or reading a book, and then going and swimming in the waves, getting a nice tan, listening to the seagulls and everything around, the people walking around and having a good time. I love the beach.
Okay.
Everything about it at the Jersey Shore. It's just something unique and special. I love being there. I love going for a swim.
Are you... Okay. Now, I'm very fair-skinned, as you can see here. Do you usually have some sort of an umbrella, or do you just make sure that you have enough suntan lotion on there?
It's got to be a little bit of both. I mean, bring somewhat of an umbrella, to be smart about the sun.
Right.
Even with putting the sunscreen on, it's always good to have that extra layer of protection over you at the beach, and lay down on a towel because obviously in a hot summer day the sand can get pretty hot as well. So try to be smart about it and everything. But love going to the beach, and it's just relaxing. You feel like you can unplug and find that alternate reality there where it's just relaxing. All right, turn over, get a nice tan on both sides, and go into the water, swim through some of the waves, and just have a relaxing day at the beach. I mean, it's one of the premier parts of the Jersey Shore. I think why people love living here and why people come visit here is the beaches and the boardwalk. So this is a place to go. Okay, a couple hours at the beach or a few during the day. Go out to dinner at night, go to the boardwalk, visit a park on a given day. So, I mean, there's a lot to do. Right. Obviously, the bigger beaches have more of the ocean. Some have a little bit of the bay, and then there are some smaller beaches that have lakes.
That's where I'm going
as well.
Okay, so I love to look at the beach. There's the waves, there's the sand, but I would prefer the bay side. I like the calm. I like the ability to see it. I mean, if you're fortunate enough to go out on a boat, I just love the visual of being part of it. My concern, look at me, how, as I mentioned, as you can see, I'm very fair-skinned. So I have to be very careful with the beach. And the problem is with the beach, you go into the ocean, you feel good, you don't realize, maybe you're burning up a bit, so you have to be careful. I get all that, but there's something about the bay side that's very calm. It's just relaxing. If you could be on a boat or on the water somehow to just take it in, that's where I enjoy it the most. Does that make sense? I'm not the guy jumping in the ocean. I'm the guy who wants to be...
That's me.
Yeah, there you go. You're on this side, I'm on that side. But I just love... There's something about, and you mentioned it before, about going out to a restaurant. I love when you can go to a place... I'd rather look out on the bay side than the ocean side. I guess because maybe there's more activity. Because in the ocean side, you have the ocean, you have the waves. That's great. People are in the water. But the bay side, you typically can see maybe there's a boat going by. There's a calmness to it. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, going through the Barnegat Bay, and that's something we'll touch on today with our first guest, Dr. Stan Hales, and from the Barnegat Bay Partnership and everything, is, the safety of the bay as well, the cleanliness of the bay, but there's also the optics of it as well.
That's what I think that's what I enjoy.
So, you go to somewhere like Caddis Island County Park in Toms River here in Ocean County. It's somewhere I've gone for runs and everything. You go to a part through some of that wooded area. There's like a mini beach, if you will. It's got some sand and everything, enough to where you could sit down and everything, enjoy the view. But you can see boats going from one side of the bay to the other. Obviously, on the other side of the water, you see some of the beach houses, some things in the other part of Toms River. So, and obviously the Barnegat Bay stretches near and far across the Jersey Shore here, but that's just one example of, seeing some boats go on the way by, seeing people have a good time. Small enough beach to where you have maybe a picnic, spend a day with the kids and everything, go through the park, and then you get a little bit of beach as well. And that's something as well that I brought up a couple weeks ago when Berkeley Mayor Carmen Amato was on the show at John C. Bartlett Jr. County Park at Berkeley Island there. There's that tiny little beach, if you will. It's sand, it's water, so I consider it a tiny beach, where you can go crabbing and fishing as well. But it's right on the bay, so you can still get a nice tan. You could dip your toes into the water. You could see some of the boats go by.
See, there it is. I think that's what
where it's a little bit closer than where you would see boats in the ocean.
Yeah, because if
it's got to be farther
in
out.
the ocean, they're going to be way out.
Right.
Where if you are on the bay side, you can see boats. Now, here, so I have friends, and they have this home that's right on the bay, right? And they have a pool. Now, to me, that's paradise, because what are you doing? You're in the water. You can see the bay. It's just that something special. Now, again, I'm very fortunate. These friends are we hang out there. It's a good setting. And to me, it's like, wow, what a great experience to come out of your house and just see all of this. We just take it for granted that this is all around us. So no matter what direction you want to go, what your options are, it's special. And like I said before, think about people, they have to come from distances to get here. And, we just have it here to be able to, especially where I live, there are so many places that are on the water that, me, I love the train. So I can actually take a train from one shore town to the next. Like Belmar, for example, has some great places on the water. I take the train, I get off the train, and I walk across the street. Now, think about that. A train up north, you don't have that ability to do something like that. You know what I mean? Or unless you're going to take the train and be on it for an hour and a half to get here, which would not be. Want to. Yeah, you could. But, for me, it's a 10-minute train ride. And again, we talk about this because, the time of year that we're in right now, the traffic is absolutely crazy. There's a lot of difficulty, if you will, to get a parking spot. So, again, the bike, the train, whatever options are available to take you to these spots, because we live here, we're spoiled. That's the bottom line.
We got it good. Lots of great beaches and parks, and lots of events and different things happening, as we've learned over the last few weeks and the last couple months now, of different things going on in Ocean County and in Monmouth County. And obviously with all the fun comes some reminders for safety as well, vehicular, pedestrian, and so on and so forth. And some of the safety we'll be getting into today with, in part with 4th of July coming up in just over a week from now, 4th of July weekend, although coming up in a few days with Monmouth County Sheriff Sean Golden later on this show, is beach safety and water safety in particular. Now, unfortunately, over the course, through June, we've seen some or heard some incidents across the state, not just at the shore, in lakes, pools, beaches of all kinds of unfortunate drowning incidents.
Correct.
Obviously, we've touched on the tragedy in the beach in Toms River in the sand, but there's been some incidents in the water as well. So it's those constant reminders. It may seem, simple or like, oh, okay, well, that won't happen to me. Right. But it's important to follow the flags on the beaches, like Chief Burniford and Harvey Cedars mentioned a couple weeks back, with taking a look at the flags. If you're not sure, even if you think you want to double check, ask the lifeguard. But also at the same time, if you don't, and some of the beaches didn't have full-time lifeguards on until the middle of June, or even now here this weekend, because a lot of lifeguards are teachers or people who work for schools or students coming home from college and so on and so forth. So don't go on a beach if it's unguarded by the lifeguards, or if there's signs that specifically say beach closed, beach not open, beach whether it's at one of those big beaches or at a park or a lake. It says if there are signs up that says, "Hey, this water is hazardous," or
listen,
"Don't go in the water today,"
right.
or because a lot of times, you see some of that debris or, so to speak, floating up in some of the lakes or waters the day after a storm. Obviously, animals go through the water too sometimes.
Correct.
So there's reasons as well that it's not just the choppiness of the water that may have followed a storm, it's also somewhat of a health thing as well. So
Correct.
Drowning or otherwise, it's also important to look out for each other, go with people to the beach, whether it's family or friends. So we're going to get into a lot of that as well today. Just, it's a theme too as well. So with the Barnegat Bay Partnership in the first hour, Monmouth County Sheriff Sean Gold in the second hour, we're going to be talking about the health of the water
so
and
important.
our beaches, but also our health as well, and making the right decisions and the smart decisions this summer at the beaches so that everybody could have a safe, happy, healthy summer, and there won't be the extra need for all this concern. And hey, what do we do now? Well,
and what's so great about that too is you hit it right on the head, where there's so many different places and people that you can ask. If there's concerns or questions, don't hesitate, just do it. The other part of it too, with all these great communities on their website, updates on different things that are going on. So it's not like you come down here from up north and you're like, oh, what do I do? Where do I go? No, think about it. Like, we've been fortunate to have such great guests on here giving us updates on the different towns and communities, beaches, and different events that are there. But, go to these different websites, check it out. It's unbelievable. You're not coming down here blind on where do I go, what do I do? The information's out there.
And it's not just trying to tout the app here or whatever, but our meteorologist, Dan Zarrow, who helps provide the weather for all our town square stations in New Jersey, puts together these reports on a daily basis as well, these surf and beach reports telling you exactly what's going on in the water, what the tides are going to be like that day, at what times you should maybe avoid the water, what the temperature is going to be like. So we have that on our app on a daily basis. So you can always check.
The app. What is the app that they would go to?
1057 The Hawk, before 3 The Point.
Got it. Right on there.
WOBM, Cat Country.
Okay,
so
it's all on there.
All our town square apps have Dan Zarrow's report. And it lists it. So, the night before, maybe you check, or the morning of, you wake up in the morning, all right, check through the weather, check through the beach report. Okay, now I know it's going to be like that. All right, maybe surf's a little rough this morning. Maybe I wait until the afternoon to go to the beach.
Right.
Or if I know there's a storm coming today, even if it's late afternoon, maybe today's I just go to the park instead.
Right.
Enjoy the sunshine while it's still out.
So there you go. That's perfect, because if you think about it, they can go to the different apps to get the weather report, see what's going on, what you can expect. And then from there, you're like, okay, well, maybe the weather isn't going to be that great. Then you can check out these different towns and look at different events. It doesn't all have to be outside. There's some great indoor events that we've spoken about many times with these interviews that, it's a rainy day. There are other things to do.
Right. We're going to get into all that. So great show on deck today. And we're going to sort of continue that conversation as well in our show next week. An early tease here. We'll get to that toward the end of this show as well. But we got, yes, it's all about summer fun, but also summer safety and doing what we can to protect our local environment as well, protect the Barnegat Bay. So Barnegat Bay Partnership, we're going to have guests coming in next, and then we'll have Monmouth County Sheriff Sean Golden. Stay tuned. Grab that cup of coffee, that orange juice,
pancakes,
and
whatever it is.
Get the breakfast going, the brunch going. Hey, you know
Cook
what?
it on the grill.
Yeah,
come on.
That's
pancakes
right.
on the
you
grill.
did bring that up recently, so get the breakfast going, whatever way you want. Just get out there, enjoy, and then turn up Short Time with Vin and Dave, nice and loud as the volume will go on your radio or car radio. Open up the windows, let the whole Jersey Shore know you're listening to Short Time with Vin and Dave. We'll have more next.
Hey, it's Chris Carlin from Rutgers Football and 98.7 ESPN in New York, and you're listening to Short Time with Vin and Dave on 94.3 The Point and 105.7 The Hawk. These fellas are entertaining.
Whether you're in the early stages of investing, getting ready to retire, or planning your estate, you need a financial planner who will guide you on a clear path with honesty and transparency. Shoreline Wealth Management understands that you're more than your money, and they strive to help you realize your best life as they align your finances with your goals. Best of all, Shoreline's straightforward approach will include you in the process. Shoreline Wealth Management is your financial anchor, committed to helping you weather life's storms. Visit shorelinewealth.com for more information today. Shorelinewealth.com. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC.
Welcome back to Short Time with Vin and Dave. Vin Avenue, Dave Crossan with you. And Dave, it's important to always keep an environmental eye and an ear and do what we can to protect our local environment as well. That's obviously including the Barnegat Bay, and so much, you think the simple things that we do as everyday people could really help make a difference. And here to talk about a lot and helping protect the Barnegat Bay Partnership is Dr. Stan Hales, director of the Barnegat Bay Partnership, and Karen Walzer, the public outreach coordinator, here to talk about the comprehensive conservation and management plan for the Barnegat Bay Little Lake Harbor Estuary. So I thank you both for coming in today to discuss this, and looking forward to getting into it.
Thank you for being here.
Dave, Vin, thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. We love talking about the Bay with everybody.
And it's always an important time, but I think Dave and I were talking about it recently. Obviously, have the big ocean, the beaches, but also the Barnegat Bay and a lot of the parks and all sorts of towns throughout Ocean County as well. And it's like, I think people go out and to enjoy it in the summertime, where they're like, oh wow, there's some really nice views here. We'll just kind of sit along the bay at some point, enjoy the optics of it, maybe dip their toes in the water, go fishing, crabbing, whatever. Yeah. To start, I guess, on that lighter note there, with before we dive in, what are some things you think make the Barnegat Bay such a special place to be at or go in throughout the summer months?
Well, all you have to do, as you said, is just look around. It's beautiful out there. I mean, the weather lately has been fantastic. Lovely scenery, lots of people doing lots of different great things, whether they're out on the beach or out on a boat, heading out to Island Beach State Park or some of the county's parks. It's just an incredible opportunity for recreation and socializing and just sitting around having a good old time. So who wouldn't want to be on
Exactly.
There we go. Right. It's John C. Bartlett, Junior County Park there at Berkeley Island. It's just a fantastic view. I mean, you see boats going by. It's a great,
very calming, very
place
relaxing.
to be.
People travel long distances to be here and enjoy it.
You touched on one of my favorite themes with being on the water, and that's relaxing. I mean, just sitting out there, sitting on a paddleboard or sitting in a kayak, just paddling around. There are few more wonderful and relaxing ways to spend on the bay than doing something like that. And to your point earlier about everybody being on the bay, I mean, Ocean County is home to something like 600,000 people, and the population of the county essentially doubles every summer.
Right.
With all the visitors. So that puts an additional burden on everybody to sort of do their part to kind of take care of it, especially when there's so many easy things that we can do to take care of the bay.
And I know that's one of the things you've been trying to get out there as well, or are trying to get out there now as we head towards the 4th of July weekend, and obviously, of course, through the rest of the summer as well, with protecting the Barnegat Bay and the Little Lake Harbor Estuary from all kinds of factors, including plastics and litter and stuff like that. And you mentioned, obviously, the population doubles in size in Ocean County, so and that, along with people having, backyard barbecues and parties, extra bottles and recycling matters and different things. And then, some people just say, oh, well, hey, the world's my recycling can, let me just throw it wherever. But I know that's something that you want to address and help get out there as well. So what are some of the points or the main messages you really want to hit on with this campaign?
Well, we started working with EPA earlier this year as part of their Trash Free Waters campaign, and we got to sit down with some marketing folks who are very thoughtful at kind of figuring out these issues and how we can appeal to everyone. And we are rolling out this Trash Free Waters campaign, and it's got a lot of different pieces, and we appreciate your all support of this.
Sure.
But essentially, we're trying to emphasize that Barnegat Bay is worth more than one use, and to your point, using single-use plastics and things like that is creating an issue statewide. That's why the state's been very aggressive in restricting single-use plastics and other things. Plastics have lots of problems. They're very long-lived, so they persist in the environment. They don't break down the way we might like things to break down in a harmless fashion. So however they accumulate and wherever they do persist, animals can ingest them. They can bite off pieces. They cause their own issues because of some of the chemicals they're made of or the chemicals that stick to them. Mm. And one of the things that people don't think about is that you think, well, plastics are cheap and easy to use.
Right.
But there's a societal cost to them in areas where they do accumulate. We don't go around and clean up everybody's neighborhood, and some neighborhoods have people who pay a little more attention to it than lots of others, and there are a lot of good partners of ours that help promote cleanups and things like that, and that's very, very helpful. But one of the things we're trying to do is sort of go at the source of the problem, and so if we can keep these things out of the environment, we don't have the cost of cleanup. We don't have the cost of recycling. The county spends a lot of money on recycling.
Yeah.
And, recycling is not the same world that it was 20 years ago. We have more and different kinds of plastics. The way we handle them and recycle them is changing all the time and presents a lot of challenges to the government and to the public. I mean, it's our money.
I think, obviously there's a lot of government agencies, like you mentioned, the state DEP and Commissioner Sean LaTourette, some lawmakers as well, both local and statewide, who are putting a hyper focus on, single-use plastics, carbon emissions, different environmental factors that are causing harm to the air and to places like the Barnegat Bay as well. But whether it's community partners or really just, I think the public, just generally speaking, all of us who live, who work, who go around, the Ocean County community and use the Barnegat Bay or like to look at the Barnegat Bay. Obviously, you want to see nice, clean water and everything. So what are some of the educational ways, some lessons or some just conversations that have to be had, rather, with people, the general public, whether that's at office buildings or schools or different places throughout the area?
We're encouraging everyone to use reusable items. Basically, take that nice expensive cup with a designer logo on it that's got a metal base and, a cork insulation and everything else. Use reusable products. I mean, they may be a little more expensive up front, but they're cheaper in the long run. You're not very likely to throw that beer mug, that $20 beer mug out in the bay, whereas
Right,
nobody
good-
cares
great
if
point,
that beer
yeah.
can or that plastic cup just blows out of your boat. So, there are a number of places around the bay, and we all know where they are, Tice's Shoals, F Cove, things like that. The litter that accidentally, gets tossed out or discarded in areas, people going to and from those places, it creates quite a mess, and all of those things are problems for all the reasons we just discussed. So, reusable items, reusable bags, they don't blow out of your boat and into the bay. And it goes to everything else. I mean, from cigarette butts to plastic bottles, all of those things, have an impact on the bay. And, we don't think of ourselves as those presenting much of a public health problem, but they actually are more of a public health problem than everybody knows when they do break down. Lots of things stick to them. We know that they're sort of hotspots for bacteria locally when they end up in waterways. So you're not doing anybody any favors by reusing or by using single-use plastic. So, let's just get them out of our lives, and the world will be a cleaner place. The nation and the world's fish and wildlife will thank us, and we'll have more money to spend on other things.
More cost effective.
Exactly,
You use the that metal material, there's
Right.
reusable bags and whatnot. It saves money too,
Right.
in addition to just things blowing all over the place. And made me think of another thing as well. With all these different volunteer groups or other groups who are cleaning beaches along the Barnegat Bay or otherwise, the things, it surprises me every year, the things that get found on
Right.
some of these beaches and
Right.
in areas along the bay. You mentioned cigarette butts. It's obviously not just the plastics and the bottles, but it's all kinds of things, not even just recyclable materials, just straight garbage.
Right.
Things that should be in the garbage can
You
are
would
now
think somebody
floating in
would
the
take
water
care of
and
it.
everything else as well. It's obviously the cigarette butts are a big part of it too. I mean, that's you don't want to walk onto a beach or walk into the water and see something like that. So do you think that more needs to be done to signage wise, or just encouraging people to say, hey, there are places to recycle, there are places to throw out garbage, and neither of them are out in the environment?
Well, I think all of those things are helpful, and as part of this Trash Free Waters campaign with EPA, we are going to be distributing some materials, as much of it as electronically as possible through social media posts and blogs and things like that. But Yeah, sometimes, especially images, photos, can be very powerful and help people realize, a problem or an opportunity or whatever. I mean, we don't want all of this communication about this to be negative. There are a lot of people that do a lot of great things about it. So, that's important. But we will start, sharing all of these materials, trash-free water materials with everyone as the summer progresses. We're trying to get an idea of their effectiveness, and hopefully word will spread by mouth. Like what we're doing here. You're doing a great job helping educate everybody about a lot of different issues. We thank you for helping educate everyone about this.
I think that's very smart, especially with social media. Everybody's got their phone in their hand and different posts, different educational pieces you can put on there just to bring up the awareness of, hey, this is a big deal. Just because you're like, it's one person doing this, no, it adds up and it creates the mess that we have with all that's going on.
Yeah. We also have some old-fashioned posters that we're going to be distributing to key points where people are going to be accessing the bay to go fishing, crabbing, clamming, so that they'll see those as well. And we have a website that everyone can go to and get tips of what they can do to better care for the bay. So we're targeting really 4 types of plastic single-use items that people can go reusable. So it's the plastic bags, replace the single-use with a reusable bag, coffee cups, encouraging people to keep a mug at work or in their car, the straws, either no straw at all or bring a reusable straw with you. And of course you can, now the state law is you need to request the straw.
Right.
Yeah. And water bottles, carry a reusable water bottle, because these are the items, the plastic water bottles, the straws, the bags that you find most when you do cleanups. And these items are more easily cleaned up on land, but once they get into the water, it's a whole nother story. It's hard to clean them up, and they're there for a very long time.
Should more be done with schools, though, like to educate the younger generations, learning about this earlier on, that, as we're doing this with the different posts and social media and awareness, but get the younger generation, hey, understanding, getting what the impact is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, kids are some of our strongest supporters.
Yes. And I feel that the New Jersey law that was just recently went into effect is helping immensely, because now, kids look at what their parents do, their behaviors, so now they're going to see their parents bringing the reusable bag to the supermarket, etc. So that's really going to help a lot.
Excellent.
So Dr. Hales and Karen want to talk more about the Barnegat Bay, obviously the state of the bay as well. I know we've talked a lot about recycling, but Dave and I have to step out for a quick break. Can you hang with us a little bit longer?
Sure will. Pleasure
Excellent.
to be here.
More Short Time with Vin and Dave and Dr. Stan Hales and Karen Walzer with the Barnegat Bay Partnership right after this.
Hi, this is High Performance Executive Coach Dana Cavalier and former Director of Strength and Conditioning for the New York Yankees, and you're listening to Short Time with Vin and Dave on 94.3 The Point and 105.7 The Hawk. It's always great to hang with champions, and these two guys are champions.
Whether you're in the early stages of investing, getting ready to retire, or planning your estate, you need a financial planner who will guide you on a clear path with honesty and transparency. Shoreline Wealth Management understands that you're more than your money, and they strive to help you realize your best life as they align your finances with your goals. Best of all, Shoreline's straightforward approach will include you in the process. Shoreline Wealth Management is your financial anchor, committed to helping you weather life's storms. Visit shorelinewealth.com for more information today. Shorelinewealth.com. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC.
Welcome back to Short Time with Vin and Dave. Vin Avenue, Dave Crossan with you, and with us here this hour is Dr. Stan Hales, the director of the Barnegat Bay Partnership, and Karen Walzer, the public outreach coordinator. We've been talking a lot about reducing single-use plastics, the recyclables and garbage that end up on beaches and across the bay as well, from cigarette butts to just all sorts of things getting tossed in there. And Dr. Hales, I want to talk about, obviously, the state of the bay. I know the report came out. Now that's something that's done every year as well. You and I actually had talked back in November as well about the comprehensive conservation and management plan for the Barnegat Bay Little Lake Harbor Estuary as well. And I know one of the things you pointed out was the algal blooms, the eutrophication, and all kinds of those natural dangers that are happening to the state of the bay. So where are things right now here in 2022 with those kind of factors and other things that are affecting the health of the bay?
Well, all of those big issues still remain. Eutrophication is still the bay's biggest problem. The bay has a fairly heavy nutrient load from the surrounding landscape. Increasingly, that nutrient load's being delivered a little more rapidly than the system can handle it, and it has manifested itself in a number of different ways, harmful algal blooms, etc., being some really obvious problem indicators. So everyone has to continue to work on that. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection is working to establish what we call a TMDL, or a load limit, how much nutrients the bay can handle, and additional things that may be needed to cut that down. Right now, we already know a lot of ways people can reduce the nutrient load to the bay, and that is be more responsible in the management of your own property. That is, use fertilizer responsibly when you use it at all. Clean up dog waste, all of those kinds of things. And, these are really simple things that everyone should be doing. And we don't have any huge point source discharges to the bay. It's just mostly runoff from the local landscape. So everybody has to take care of their property, and increasingly municipalities are going to be asked to do a better job of managing stormwater runoff. And what's making that problem worse, what's creating more of a problem, is the fact that with climate change, we have more frequent and more severe storms. I think nobody's surprised by that right now, with all of the tremendous variations in weather we're seeing, and the rain we're getting, pretty frequently. So we have to do more to capture that water and get it back into the ground so that it's delivered at natural rates. If we harden the landscape, throw in another parking lot or two here or there, and don't take steps to address that stormwater runoff, the bay is going to continue to struggle. So responsible land use is a big part of that. The other real challenge for the bay right now is climate change. Everyone's increasingly aware of climate change, but not everybody's necessarily familiar with how to address it.
Sure.
We're having really serious conversations about, what energy sources do we use? What are the good and the bad things about those? There's a vigorous debate about, going to offshore wind and electric energy generation. But, this is one of the ways we can reduce carbon dioxide inputs into the atmosphere. It's far better for the planet, and far better for us, and far better for local resources if we can take steps to reduce that carbon load.
And where are things at with sea level rise? Obviously, you mentioned the stormwater runoff, and to a degree, the landscaping, and I know there's been concerns with overdevelopment as well. But how does that all factored into sea level rise and with the health of the Barnegat Bay?
Well, all of those things really don't factor into sea level rise. Sea level is going to keep rising regardless of what we do short term. So, we've always had some certainty in the past. We knew where the edge of our property was and where the edge of the river started, or the bay, or the ocean. But now waterways everywhere, either because of nuisance flooding kinds of things, because of the way we treat the landscape, or because of these larger global challenges, sea level is rising in this area, and it's rising at rates higher than sort of other parts of the planet on average, because of just the local landscape and how the continents move and the lands move up and down, etc. I mean, sea level rise we use as a way to integrate a lot of changes locally.
Do you think would adding additional berms or something help, or building up higher man-made, seawalls or something like that could help keep the water flow where it needs to be?
Well, it would be nice if there were a simple answer, but there's no single one-size-fits-all answer for living along the shore. We have to do a better job of recognizing what the more vulnerable parts of our shore communities are, and taking steps to address that. Some of the things that you suggest may buy us a little time, but they also make some other problems worse. For example, right now, the northern Barnegat Bay, much of it is bulkheaded. Anybody who's out there knows that every time a boat goes by, or a jet ski or something, you get a little wave, and that wave bounces off your seawall. And so you get erosion of the other landscapes the natural landscapes as a result of that. And so that bulkhead also keeps materials from moving off of your landscape into the water. And historically, the fate of a wetland has been to grow, to increase land, to add land, because it trapped all the sediments that were moving down the river or through the system. And with bulkheading, we've interrupted that sediment movement. And so most of the coastal systems in New Jersey, most of them are probably sediment limited. We know the Barnegat Bay is just because of all the work that's been done. So there's not enough sediment to keep the wetlands above water. And so we're losing the Barnegat Bay Estuary, and over time it may become Lake Barnegat, which would provide very, very different resources and different opportunities, and we would lose some things. Some of the things that make the bay, we wouldn't be able to enjoy.
What would help increase, nutrient load or help with some of the things you were mentioning there in trying to, with the bay that's there now, and trying to, increase nutrient load or, make sure that the water levels are as safe and healthy as possible to live in and to swim in and so forth?
Well, that's a big question. Let me be clear. We don't want to increase the nutrient load. We want to reduce it.
Right.
We want to reduce it as much as possible with everything we do. And sewage treatment, that's one of the reasons for sewage treatment. One of the reasons for sewage treatment is to process the nutrients in some ways. But as we said earlier, in terms of being responsible with your own land use,
sure.
Fertilize, clean up dog waste.
Jersey-friendly yards.
Jersey-friendly yards. Thank you,
Karen. That's a second. I always to bring that up. That's a second website that we have. That's really, it's actually a statewide website. Initially started for the Barnegat Bay watershed, but what it does is give people the information that they can use to make their own yards more environmentally friendly, to capture stormwater on their yards, to reduce their lawn size, use less fertilizer, use native plants. All these things help capture stormwater and reduce sources of nitrogen that could be getting into our rivers and creeks and then eventually into Barnegat Bay. And the problem won't resolve itself until more people actually get on board with doing something in their own yards, because it's coming from everywhere in the watershed.
And that's an excellent point. It was going to be my follow-up as well. Some things that people should be doing in their yards. The kinds of plants, the kinds of mulch or fertilizer, rocks or grass, how they take care of their property and everything. And because obviously you see the sewers in nearby streets. Obviously, water's got to go somewhere. So are those quick fixes? Either of you can answer that, where some things that people can, as they're taking care of their yard this summer, some things to take, or even going into the fall, like, okay, all right, well, maybe instead of doing this, I'll do that. And then as a result, anything that runs off my property won't be as harmful.
Right. So really any little thing that someone does will be helpful. And the website gives you 8 steps, 8 different things that you can do to reduce your environmental impact, from your own yard. And one of the easiest ways is just to put a planting bed. It can be very small along the edges of your property. That way, if any runoff is coming from your lawn or your driveway, it will be able to infiltrate into the ground, and the roots of those plants will take it up so that it doesn't hit the street and the storm drain and et cetera. So that's what we suggest you do. Like simple changes in your yard, even adding 1 bed of native plants will help.
So something like that. Sorry, David, just a quick follow-up. The edging, that you kind of see in like the Home Depots or Lowe's or whatever, that sort of edging you could put along the plants or the mulch. Would that kind of do a better job of helping keep things on the property instead of flowing?
It might. I mean, that could be helpful, but we really recommend putting in some native plants, because they actually have very, very deep roots, because they are so well adapted to our sandy soils and our climates. So those roots actually help to get the stormwater back into the ground, and also the plants themselves use it to grow. So, and of course, then the native plants provide, food and shelter and everything for wildlife. So there's so many advantages to doing that. And people are actually becoming much more aware of all the benefits of native plants. And we've seen that since we launched the website back in 2015. And We just are releasing a new certification program, Jersey Friendly Yards based, which will be for the Barnegat Bay watershed. So residents can get certified if they do certain of the Jersey Yards practices in their yards. Schools can get certified for having a Jersey Friendly schoolyard, and also municipalities can get certified that they are a Jersey Friendly town. So
Sure.
Yeah, we're hoping that will jumpstart more action in our area.
I think this is so important because there's a lot more people now moving down here permanently. There's a lot more construction, a lot more homes, a lot of areas that are now being developed that we hadn't seen until the pandemic, and now people are like, you know what, I want to live down here, so they're building constantly. So having this conversation is so important because there's more people here, more items like we're talking about that need to be done.
No, absolutely. I mean, one of our common messages is the Bay is everybody's responsibility, and everybody needs to do more to take care of it. So, and so much of the things that you can do to take care of the Bay are relatively simple.
Yeah,
just making the right choice.
No, we've hit on a lot of great points along those lines as well, even from your own yard, and then of course when you're out in public, beaches, boardwalks, going to and from work or restaurants and this and that. I mean, just kind of be more cognizant of, what you're doing and where you're doing it. I think that was I figured that was an environmental concern highlighted by the pandemic as well, with the amount of people who, okay, I'm done with my mask, let me just toss it over here. That it would bring more attention to the fact of, doing the simple things, the routine things of, okay, this is garbage, I'll put it in a garbage can. This is recycling, I'll put it in a recycling can, reduce the single-use plastics, recycle more, get more of those reusable things, the glasses, the mugs, and certainly the water bottles as well. I mean, if you, what does a lot of doctors like to say, right? You need to drink a lot of water. So, I mean, one way to encourage that, use those reusable water bottles. Okay, it's done. Time to go back to the cooler and get another round.
Well, and that's why you see a lot of bottle filling stations now in place of where there used to be just a simple water fountain. So everybody's trying to promote people, taking advantage of that opportunity.
Dr. Hales, as we start closing up here, a couple points I want to get to as well. But just with the state of the Bay, what are some of the other highlights that you want to get out there, either concerns with the Bay or some things that are improving in the Bay or what we could do? Yeah,
no, we have some significant concerns about the Bay, about a couple of the habitats. And the State of the Bay report, we changed the structure and the format of that a little bit, to emphasize not only the condition of things, but the things that we don't know that we have some concern might be hurting us. And so I'd highlight three things in particular. Number one, we don't know enough about the movement of water through the entire system. So right now we're funding a study with the USGS to determine what we call the minimum ecological flows. That's the minimum amount of water we need coming into the system to sustain the integrity of the ecosystem. So that's one of our highest priorities right now. And hopefully within a couple of years we'll have that figured out. What that will do, and some shore towns have already started doing it, it might mean more kinds of water conservation measures that we might need to take. And, the Jersey Shore and most of the state has really good water resources. But with climate change, they're going to become a little more uneven. And so, the time you plan for a drought is when you're not having one. So we need to be a little more responsible about water. And if we do that, there'll be plenty of water for everyone almost all the time. So that's number one. Number two, Barnegat Bay is home to most of the state's submerged aquatic vegetation, or as we call it, SAV. There are two species of SAV in Barnegat Bay, eelgrass, which has been the most widespread throughout the state, and one that's moving into the state from more southern waters called widgeon grass.
Okay.
And we've not ever done a really good job consistently in assessing SAV throughout Barnegat Bay. We know almost 80, 90 years ago, almost all of it was wiped out, and it did recover. But, a lot of things happen. You have wet years with dry years. We had Hurricane Superstorm Sandy, move through the system and disrupt a lot of the bay's habitats. We don't know how SAV has recovered. So we're going to invest a pretty good chunk of money in the coming year to figure out, how much SAV we have, where it is, how it's doing, and if we need to do additional things to take care of it. And one of the things I should say, just as an aside, that nutrient load, SAV is one of the things affected by that nutrient load. So if we reduce the nutrient load, we're helping SAV. So, but SAV is number 2, and then third would be our coastal wetlands. For the issues that we talked about previously, most of our wetlands right now are drowning as the tide gets higher and higher and higher.
Wow.
And they don't have the sediment supplies they need to keep their heads above water. And so right now, there are a couple of different things that we're all looking at as a means of addressing this. First, the BBP and one of our sister NEPs, one of our sister National Estuary programs, the Partnership for the Delaware Estuary, we have the largest wetland monitoring system throughout the state.
Oh, wow.
Just to assess the condition of these systems. So we're going to continue to do that work, provided we've got enough, money in the bank, kind of thing. But and that's always a challenge. But we also need to be a little more active in sort of giving wetlands a helping hand. And the 2 ways we do that right now are restoring sort of the wetland platform. And if we look at it in a 2-dimensional way, it's like if we put some material on top, we help it keep its head above water. The other thing that we do is to address the erosion of wetlands around the edges. There's a lot of shoreline restoration going on. Now, one of the things that we don't know is that, should we save the edge of the wetland or should we pile material on top? And if we pile material on top, how much material do we put up there? What kind of material do we put up there? Are there things up there, living on that wetland that, we need to take care of? There's a really, really critical bird that nests in those wetlands, and so salt marsh sparrow. And so, there's some critical resources we need to keep an eye on as we do these kinds of things. But more importantly, we need to do a better job of managing the system itself. That is, all the sediment that's moving around in the system. You hear about dredging, and everybody knows about beach renourishment. Recently, there was an article published in a scientific journal. It said, marshes are the new beaches because of all the wetland restoration work that's going on.
Yeah.
But we don't know enough about the sediment supplies and the sediment dynamics in the system. So we're trying to invest a little time and energy with a lot of other groups, DEP, the State Department of Transportation, and others, all of those that have projects and have different responsibilities for managing some of the state's waterways and wetlands. So that's going to be increasingly important as we move forward.
And the last question, just where can people go to learn more about the State of the Bay, the Barnegat Bay Partnership, and all the things that you guys do?
Thanks for the great question, Vin. Check out our website, www.barnegatbaypartnership.org. We also work with lots of great partners. The state has a Barnegat Bay website as well. But if you enter the words Barnegat Bay, you can find some really good resources. So I want to thank you, and I'd also just like to publicly thank all of our other partners.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being here. A lot of great information.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Please go and check out the BarnegatBayPartnership.org. That is Dr. Stanley Hales, the director of the Barnegat Bay Partnership, along with Karen Walzer, the public outreach coordinator. Thank you to both of you again for coming in and sharing the state of the Bay and all the good things about it as well.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
More Short Time with Vin and Dave coming up next.
Hello, this is Chef David Burke on Short Time with Vin and Dave on 94.3 The Point and 105.7 The Hawk. And if you could see us, you'd know the three of us have perfect faces for radio.
Whether you're in the early stages of investing, getting ready to retire, or planning your estate, you need a financial planner who will guide you on a clear path with honesty and transparency. Shoreline Wealth Management provides clarity through the complexity with offices in Manchester and Manahawkin. Shoreline Wealth Management is your financial anchor. Visit shorelinewealth.com for more information and start your financial journey with comfort and security today. Shorelinewealth.com. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC.
Welcome back to Short Time with Vin and Dave. Vin Ebeneu, Dave Crossan with you. And as we continue along the show, Dave, obviously, end of June here, 4th of July coming up, but all year long and not just the summer. And I think Dr. Stan Hales and Karen Walzer from the Barnegat Bay Partnership, who were just with us, so greatly explained, was what we could do as individuals. Obviously, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made by the DEP or certain lawmakers, but I mean, it's a lot of common sense stuff too as well, or some things that could be done on the municipal level in local towns by governing bodies as well. But lots to do to take care of the Barnegat Bay. It's such a huge piece of waterway. Obviously, on a nice day, you like to look at it. Maybe go for a swim, go crabbing, go take the boat out on the water. There's a lot with the Barnegat Bay, and it's sad to see all the litter and stuff pop up on beaches and in the waterway because it's such a nice body of water that so many different people use. So I think we all have a responsibility as individuals to take care of the Barnegat Bay.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the effect of, we think about people out on the weekend and leaving stuff behind. That's a huge factor. But the other thing I thought was very interesting with the interview, very important for residents with lawns and their property and not over fertilizing, or also at the end of their property having more plants and whatnot to absorb water flow. Because what's happening is all these fertilizers, different things are getting into the bay, where there are things that people could do with their own property, as we always talk about. There's so many more people now moving down here.
Right.
And this water's got to go somewhere. And if there's different things that we could do as homeowners to either absorb that water or so that we're not over fertilizing and creating problems in the bay, that's so important. I'm glad we actually had that conversation.
There's a lot of science that goes into it. Obviously, a lot of cleanups as well by groups like the Barnegat Bay Partnership. I know Clean Ocean Action is another one who helps clean up some of the waterways, not just Barnegat Bay, but shore all across the Jersey Shore and statewide. I mean, some of the things that they find on the beaches. I mean, I guess you could laugh at the absurdity of it, but it's also kind of mind-boggling too with some of the things that pop up. It's like,
and I think people think, oh, it's just one thing,
right?
You know what I mean? That's the mentality.
I
left a couple bottles, big deal. But you got a bunch of people doing the same thing. Well, now you've got a problem. So it's just awareness, and I do like the fact that they are going to be putting out different social media pieces, if you will, quick to the point, just to bring awareness. Because look, as you and I are talking right now, our phones are here, and it's just where people are constantly on them, and different social media talking about what's going on, what people can do, better practices is so important.
Look, and I'm I'm not no environmental expert or anything, but I mean, you take a look at pictures, kind of to your point, right? So you see these different people going on vacations, different states, different countries, or whatever. Obviously, New Jersey has its own, environmental surroundings and stuff like that, so it's a little bit different. But I mean, if you want the envy of those beaches or those waterways that you see in other states or other countries, it takes a collective, collaborative effort on everybody's part to do what you can. And obviously, litter is a big part of it, but also, making the smart decisions. How do you put together your yard? What decisions are being made on a government level to take care of the environment as well? So everybody everywhere has got a part to play in this, and in treating it, making the good decisions and making the Barnegat Bay a healthier place.
And it's funny having that conversation about what people could do with their properties and over fertilizing, and then putting plants near the end of their property. I wouldn't have thought of that end of it. The fact that let's limit the grass exposure and have plants that they can absorb that water. Just from that conversation alone, it's like it's that light bulb. Okay, I get it. That makes sense.
Think. It was a very thoughtful conversation.
Yes,
Glad for Dr. Stan Hales and Karen Walzer from the Barnegat Bay Partnership. We'll help get the word out. We'll provide some links for you as well on our app and website where you can learn more about it, or you can go to the Barnegat Bay take out the word just barnegatbaypartnership.org and check out everything that they've got going on there, and do what you can to help out today, tomorrow, and forever.
Such an important conversation. I'm glad we did that.
More of the show coming up. We've got Dave's Financial Wake-Up Call, and then we've got Monmouth County Sheriff Sean Golden talking about summer as well, summer safety, summer advice, and some things that you should know that we should all know today, tomorrow, and 4th of July weekend coming up, and some things to know about beach safety as well throughout the summer. So more Short Time with Vin and Dave coming up next.
Hi, this is Christy Pierce-Rampone, former U.S. women's soccer team captain, Olympic gold medalist, World Cup champion, and Point Borough High School alum. And you're listening to Short Time with Vin and Dave on 94.3 The Point and 105.7 The Hawk. Tune in for some real conversation with Dave and Vin. You don't want to miss this.